I'm Lee C. Camp, and this is No Small Endeavor, exploring what it means to live a good life.
All of this really comes from this place of loving nature, of being just gobsmacked by shooting stars and ants and rainforests and coral reefs and all of it.
That's marine biologist and policy expert Dr. Ayana Elizabeth Johnson talking about the essential role that hope and imagination play in her conservation work.
It's not a technology question. It's a how can we be better humans question.
Today on the show, we revisit 4 conversations with people like Ayana who have cultivated hope to create change in themselves, their communities, and the globe we share. More inspiration from Dr. Johnson, along with meditation teacher Tara Brach, legendary songwriter Tom Paxton, and America's government teacher Sharon McMahon coming right up. Hey friend, if you didn't know, I started a newsletter a while back that comes out every 2 weeks. I've been delighted to hear from so many of you about positive response to the newsletter. We call it the No Small Endeavor Notebook, where I riff on themes and topics related to our podcast, giving you additional material for thinking and doing in your own quest to make sense of what it might mean to live a good life. Join us by going now to nosmallendeavor.com and sign up there. Again, go to nosmallendeavor.com to sign up now for our free No Small Endeavor Notebook newsletter. So my lovely wife Laura and I just celebrated a big anniversary for our marriage. It was big enough, and no, I'm not telling you how many years, but it's more than I can hardly believe. Big enough that we decided to take a trip to the UK to celebrate. Now, I make a packing list before I start packing for a big trip, and guess what was both on the list and in my bag when I went through international departures? Kachava is especially ideal when you're on the go, when you don't want to sacrifice quality nutrition for convenience, or when you want an alternative that is incredibly tasty when you're tempted with fast food. I love it, truly. It's a whole body meal with plant-based protein that actually tastes delicious. We get all-day energy with 5 key vitamins and minerals, the nourishment of the immune system, 25 grams of that 100% plant-based protein. And listen to this. With every 2 scoops of Kachava, you get 85 plus superfoods, nutrients, and plant-based ingredients. Try Kachava risk-free with their Love It guarantee, and thousands of rave reviews agree you're going to love it. Shop now through December 2nd to get 30% off your first purchase of 2 or more bags. Go to kachava.com and use code NSE, valid for new customers. So that's 30% off your first order for a limited time at kachava.com, code NSE. That's kachava.com, code NSE. I'm Lee C. Camp. This is No Small Endeavor, exploring what it means to live a good life.
Imagination is one of the things we most need right now. I really think it's a time for artists, filmmakers, storytellers, musicians to help us to paint a more tangible sense of what we want to create together so we can get excited about rolling up our sleeves and putting in the effort that's going to take, because there's a lot of work we need to do.
That is marine biologist and environmental policy expert Dr. Ayana Elizabeth Johnson, kicking off our holiday special on the role of hope in making change. Over the years here on No Small Endeavor, we've interviewed remarkable people like Ayana who are working to cultivate constructive change for good in ways large and small. Though our guests often come from diverse backgrounds and work in vastly different fields, the surprising thing they all have in common is not passion, determination, or sheer force of will. It's hope. Even those up against seemingly insurmountable odds have managed to stay connected to a vision of the future in which transformation is possible. Like Sharon McMahon, otherwise known as America's government teacher.
Nobody can do everything, but everyone can do something. And we cannot allow our inability to solve all of the world's problems paralyze us into doing nothing.
But in the midst of the news cycle and in the midst of the culture wars which seem intent on driving us all into ever deeper despair, what might it possibly mean to cultivate hope at such a time as this? I've heard business people say hope is not a strategy. And indeed, often it is not. But what if hope were a strategy? What if it is not a mere idyllic, utopian refusal to be realistic? What if hope is an attitude, a disposition, a practice that makes new things possible? Today on the show, we are revisiting conversations with 4 guests who have cultivated hope in their own lives, in their communities, and for the globe at large. And out of those conversations, we'll suggest 3 practices that might help you follow in their footsteps. First, as individuals, then as community members, and finally, as citizens of the wider world we share. Later on, we'll hear more from Ayana and Sharon as they discuss hope, policy, and civic engagement. And we'll also be talking with legendary songwriter Tom Paxton, who takes us deep into the Greenwich Village music scene of the 1960s, where songs and community inspired a generation to organize for peace and justice. But first, let's begin with hope and transformation on an individual level. To help us, here's meditation teacher, psychologist, and author Tara Brach.
We have amazing potential to change some of the habits that cause ourselves or others harm, but we won't be able to access that if we're at war with ourselves.
I spoke with Tara on the 20th anniversary of her book, Radical Acceptance, about what she calls the trance of unworthiness.
Our deepest longing is to belong. It's in our DNA. We are pack creatures, we're social creatures. And so feeling that we're enough, feeling that we're deserving, then we sense we belong and we can relax. When there's a sense that there's something wrong with me, that we're flawed, hand in hand with that, because that's shame, is this fear that we're going to be pushed out of the group, out of the belonging. So we get really gripped by that fear of failing. It really means a lot to fail. It's not okay to make a mistake. It translates into I'm going to be rejected and flung out into the cold. And it's really interesting because all of the defenses come out of that sense of I'm separate, something's missing, something's wrong, I need something. And what we do as humans is we go from that sense of life is dangerous, something's wrong, to I'm wrong. We take it personally. That is the way the ego is structured. If there are a lot of hurdles to feel a sense of belonging to our family, to the earth, to the community, then it's gonna in some way be a reflection to us that something's wrong with me. And in our culture, there are so many different hierarchies that give the message to some, you are less than, whether it's racial or by class or by religion, whatever, that many, many people get the message from our society of that sense of flawedness.
So then your book is structured around this fundamental claim that the way out, or let me just read this one passage. The way out of our cage begins with accepting absolutely everything about ourselves and our lives. So that's I'm sure a lot of people are going to receive that as quite objectionable, but unpack that and make the case for it for us.
Sure. Well, I think right away, I think of Carl Rogers, famous American psychologist, who said, it wasn't until I accepted myself just as I was that I was free to change. And the reason I like that so much, Lee, is that it says basically that on some deep level, making friends with or being at peace with how we are in the moment, like how this life is expressing right in this moment, is the precondition to transformation. If we're at war with ourselves, we're just seeding in the soil of our psyche more aversion, more shame, more guilt. So if we want to be able to emerge and evolve, in some way we have to make friends with the life that's here. Another way of saying it is we just have to stop being at war with reality. I mean, I think of it like we have to love ourselves into healing. It doesn't work for children. It doesn't work for anybody to punish people into trying to bring out the best of who they are. And I saw with myself, because when I was in my 20s, I had an eating disorder and I had a huge shame around it. And so I kept being very punishing towards how I was eating and how I was experiencing myself. And I finally got to this place that I realized that I had to sense where the pain was and really hold it with kindness, that the drivenness, that sense of not being able to tolerate being with the rawness of my experience without self-soothing with food. I had to hold that with enormous compassion. And that somehow or other relaxed my nervous system so I could start making new choices. And that's just one example. I mean, I've held all sorts of things against myself and realized that wasn't going to bring out a positive change.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, on your definition of radical acceptance, you said it has two parts: seeing clearly and holding our experience with compassion. And you kind of started to get at that, but would you tell us a little bit more about both of those two parts of acceptance?
Yeah. So it's described, I love the description of the two wings of the bird, and that anytime we want to wake up our awareness, wake up to who we can be, there are two wings in order to fly and be free. And one wing is the wing of what's sometimes called mindfulness, which is seeing clearly what's happening in the moment. And the question that you can ask yourself to have that wing wake up is, what is happening inside me right now? It's just a really simple, powerful inquiry. What is happening inside me right now? The other wing is the wing of compassion, which says whatever we're seeing, can we hold it with some tenderness, some grace, some space, some kindness? So that wing, the question is, and can I be with this? Or can I let this be? And I'll share just a story that really helped me attune to the two wings. Was I was teaching at a 2-week silent retreat, and we do interviews with the people who are there. And one of the men that I was doing interviews with was in the early stages of Alzheimer's. And he was a clinical psychologist, and he had been practicing meditation for a decade, just to give a little background. And then he told me about, some months back, he had been giving a talk to about 100 people. And he started, and then he went completely blank. He didn't know why he was there, who they were. So here's what he did. First, he actually paused. I call it the sacred art of pausing, because we cannot enter the next moment fresh if we don't pause. So he paused, and then he started naming what he was aware of. And he would say, heart pounding. And then he put his palms together and bow. And then he would say, afraid, palms together, bow. Ashamed, palms together, bow. Confused, and it kept going. And then he said, relaxing, bow. He looked at the group and he apologized. And one person said to him, and they had tears in their eyes, no one has ever taught us this way. And what had he done? He had basically, those are the two wings. He had named what was happening, just naming experience. And then the other wing, letting it be with a sense of honoring. This is reality in this moment. And that created the circumstance for him to calm down, for him to be in relationship with others. The two wings have transformational magic. They bring us into the power of presence. And sometimes it takes time, because we have all sorts of distractions in our mind and so on, to simply notice what's happening in the moment and open our hearts to it.
So, first practice for cultivating some hope and transformation on a personal level. When you find yourself in a trance of unworthiness, when the stories you tell about yourself and the world around you become paralyzing, practice the two wings of awareness. First, with mindfulness, ask yourself the question, what is happening inside me right now? And second, with compassion, ask yourself about whatever it is that is happening inside you, can I just be with this? See if you can hold what's happening inside you with tenderness, grace, and kindness. Even if the answer is no, I can't be with this right now, simply be present to the no. And perhaps in that space of acceptance and compassion, we can begin to sow some seeds of change, cultivate the first tendrils of hope for freedom from our own suffering and compulsions. You're listening to No Small Endeavor and our holiday special, Hope for Change. I love hearing from you. Tell us what you're reading, who you're paying attention to, or send us feedback about today's episode. You can reach me at lee@nosmallendeavor.com. You can get show notes for this episode in your podcast app or wherever you listen. These notes include links to resources mentioned in this episode and a full transcript. We would be most appreciative if you'd go to your favorite podcast app and there write us up a glowing 5-star review of No Small Endeavor. Those reviews make a real difference. They help extend the reach of what we're trying to do with No Small Endeavor, and we, again, would be most appreciative. Coming up, we talk with iconic singer-songwriter Tom Paxton about the songs, laughter, and community that inspired a generation to organize for peace and justice. It has been so delightful to see more and more listeners like you sign up for NSE Plus. Our growing community is made up of intelligent and thoughtful people looking for a holistic approach to human flourishing. Signing up for NSE Plus is also a way to support the show and the work we're doing, and in fact, we depend upon that kind of support. But in addition to supporting the show, you'll get exclusive access to bonus content, and the No Small Endeavor you've come to love will be completely ad-free. In fact, you won't even hear ads like this one. So go to nosmallendeavor.com and click Join NSE Plus to become a member of our community today. Join for as little as $5 a month. Again, go to nosmallendeavor.com, click on that red button that says Join NSE Plus to become a member today. Before the break, I talked with meditation teacher Tara Brach about a practice she calls the 2 wings of awareness. Next is a conversation with legendary singer-songwriter Tom Paxton about the importance of community. The New Folk revival of the late 50s and 60s was a musical phenomenon that became a significant driver of social and political change in mid-century America. In now iconic New York City venues like the Bitter End and the Gaslight Cafe, artists like Bob Dylan, Pete Seeger, and Odetta galvanized a generation of young people to organize for civil rights, labor unions, and an end to the war in Vietnam. Tom Paxton was one of the songwriters on the front lines in the midst of a season of a great deal of social distress, trying to find a way to point toward new possibilities to facilitate some hoped-for new era. When you think of those early years, today, I wandered around Greenwich Village because I wanted to see this old place that you sang when you were young at the Gaslight Cafe. Is that what it's called?
Sure.
Yeah. What are some of your memories of playing there in Greenwich Village?
Oh, so many good memories. So few bad ones. It was a wonderful laboratory for us. It was a way to learn how to get on stage and what to do and how to get off. It was a very collegial kind of atmosphere. We had a room upstairs where we left our guitar cases, and we even had a penny ante poker game in progress, and we had rigged up a speaker so we could hear the show, and you could tell when it was your time, cash in your chips and go play your set, come back up and get back in the game. For my mind, there would have been lots of laughter because we laughed all the time at each other, with each other. And we also sang songs for one another and got critiques.
Yeah.
There was a serious business to sing a song for someone like Phil Oakes. Phil would give you an honest report of what he thought. And so would Dave Van Ronk. Very helpful advice. but mainly support, sometimes undeserved support, but loving support, and competition as well. But it was all very healthy, I thought.
Did y'all have a sense of the sort of significant moment this was in American cultural development?
No, we didn't feel that at all at the time. It became and remains a surprise to me, such a focus on that period and place. It certainly was fun while we were there, but we didn't have any idea that it was going to be examined from across the sea or in academe. We were just young kids trying to make a living.
I would imagine that given some of the kind of protest songs that do you like that label, protest song?
I don't mind it. I mean, I didn't like being called a protest singer because I wrote songs like The Marvelous Toy and Ramblin' Boy. And I mean, just a small portion of the songs were angry songs. And I completely claim them, but it's just one part of the picture.
Yeah. What were you encountering that precipitated a lot of that work?
It came with the territory. My idols were people like the Weavers, Pete Seeger, Woody Guthrie, whom I never got a chance to meet. The union struggles and that came with folk music. You had folk songs being sung in the coal camps and protesting the indecencies of the mine owners. It was all real. And it was part of what you heard. You know, Woody Guthrie songs involved the life of the migrant worker and the flight from the Dust Bowl and all of that. That was part of it. And along with it came the funny songs and children's songs and love songs and angry songs. Yeah. It was part of the whole picture. And I accepted that. And so I would get ideas for a song of protest. Yes. And to me, they were songs. They deserved as much attention from the craft as any song. But they were the songs that any self-respecting commercial songwriter would just not bother writing. They might just sing for their friends or something. But to me, they were part of the whole palette.
One of the things that strikes me about hearing you refer to some of those songs as angry songs is that they don't come across as angry. I mean, they come across as indicting, but there's a sort of ironic playfulness about it, I think, that is kind of disarming, I think.
Yeah.
I think I remember the first time hearing some of those songs, and I was working and I started hearing that and I thought, what did that just say? And I just had to stop and go back and look the lyrics up and said, this is brilliant. But when you allude to them as angry songs, is that where you were? Were you angry? Or
oh, yes, I was. Oh, yeah. They were angry songs, all right. I mean, I hope they're funny as well. But I learned a lot of that from Tom Lehrer. Tom Lehrer wrote funny songs, too, with Razor's Edge in them.
Yeah.
And Woody Guthrie also.
Yeah.
Woody had a great sense of irony.
Yeah.
He could poke holes in idiots.
Another one that is really striking in this regard, what did you learn in school today?
Yeah. That was, to my great joy, that was one of Pete Seeger's 10 favorite songs.
Really? It's a brilliant song.
And what did you learn in school today, dear little boy of mine? What did you learn in school today, dear little boy of mine? I learned that war is not so bad. I learned about the great ones we have had. We fought in Germany and in France, and someday I might get my chance. And that's what I learned in school today. That's what I learned in school.
You're living in Greenwich Village area.
Mm-hmm.
I would assume it's kind of like all in the air, I would imagine, in those days.
I've always thought of myself as being just one of the choir, one of the gang that chips in my contributions from time to time as best I can.
At one point you said about your younger self being young and impassioned almost automatically put me over on the radical side of most issues. And then you said, being older, I find myself still more or less there, somewhat to my surprise.
Yeah.
Tell us about that.
Well, I mean, how about right now? I am so angry about the condition of our body politic. That pisses me off enormously. I mean, that is outrageous. So, yeah, I'm still there.
Your song, Daily News. Civil rights leaders are a pain in the neck. How do I know? I read it in the Daily News. Peace hurts business, and that ain't right. How do I know? I read it in the Daily News. We got to bomb Castro, got to bomb him flat. He's too damn successful. We can't risk that. What's your take on the way in which that song seems to be too true?
Well, it ain't my fault. I think I would take another look at the line about Castro. Too damn successful? I don't think so. I mean, I think the verdict is pretty solid on that is not a successful venture. But you only had to read the Daily News to see what they wanted us to believe that was a lie. They were great. I mean, they were the Fox News of their day.
What's your earliest memory of being willing to ask questions of the powers that be?
I think it goes a long way back with me. I had a mindset as a kid, as a young student, everything. I wanted to believe that it was the way they said it was. I wanted that. It would have been so much easier. But it wasn't and isn't. So I made friends with the truth. I said, this is a tough, tough world. And the people who want it all are also tough. This is not a game for sissies. You have to be willing to hurt. And nobody wants that. Nobody wants to get hit in the head all the time. You'd like it to be the way they paint it in Ronald Reagan eloquence, sitting on a hill, all that. Only part of that is true. And part of it is very wrong. And as somebody said, freedom isn't free. You have to fight for it day and night for it. It's always going to be a struggle. And there are always going to be people who want not only theirs, but yours. That's where the struggle is. They don't want a fair deal. They want the whole deal. And too bad if you're too weak to get your half.
Did those sorts of questions arise for you from your parents?
I don't think I got anything of what I am from them. I think I got it from my associations as I was growing up. But I didn't think much politically at all. It was only when I came to New York, when the civil rights movement was blazing, erupting even as I landed. I was in the Army still and coming in on weekends to the village. And a fellow named Len Chandler, who was my first folk singing friend in New York, took me to a picket line in front of a Woolworths. The students in the South were sitting in at Woolworths, and we were picketing in the North in support of that. Mm. And I wrote a perfectly dreadful song in support of that. It was not a stretch for me. All I needed to see really was what was going on. And automatically, lined with them. And that was my beginning of awakening.
So, from singer-songwriter legend Tom Paxton doing his thing in the midst of the new folk revival, a second possible practice of hope: just do your thing, your craft, in the midst of the community where you find yourself. Listen, learn, work, contribute, and find the people that can help you get better at all of it. So, hopeful practice number 2, pursue a hope of transformation in community. Put down your screen, gather with friends, and employ your creativity together to bring some new artifact of beauty or goodness into the world. And when you do, we'd love to hear about it. You can reach me at lee@nosmallendeavor.com. Coming up is a short break, followed by conversations on hope, policy, and civic engagement with marine biologist Dr. Ayana Elizabeth Johnson and America's government teacher Sharon McMahon.
John Legend, Sheryl Crow, Elvis Costello, and Alanis Morissette star in the MGM Plus original series, Words and Music. Iconic artists share intimate performances and the stories behind the songs. Series premiere on November 30th, only on MGM Plus.
The Who's down in Who Newville were making their list, but some didn't know Walmart has the best brands for their gifts.
What about toys? Do they have brands kids have been wanting all year?
Yep, Barbie, Tony's, and Lego. Gifts that will make them all cheer.
Do you mean they have all the brands I adore?
They have Nintendo, Nespresso, Apple, and more.
What about...
So the Who answered questions from friends till they were blue. Each one listened and shouted, from Walmart? Who knew? Shop gifts from top brands for everyone on your list in the Walmart app.
Before the break, I talked with legendary songwriter Tom Paxton about the importance of community in creating social change. And now we're turning to hope and the role it plays in policy and civic engagement. It's one thing, as we just did, to suggest pursuing change in the context of our community, but when we're dealing with needed changes that feel both urgent and overwhelming, and our communities are divided over precisely what sorts of change is needed, what to do? First on this question is marine biologist and policy expert Ayana Elizabeth Johnson. Ayana certainly has experience when it comes to tackling pressing global issues, and she's no stranger to the frightening consequences of a failure to act. But her book, What If We Get It Right, proposes a hopeful vision of the future and encourages action rooted in love instead of fear. The last line in your bio reads, above all, Ayana is in love with climate solutions. And so before we start talking about the climate solutions part, I want to point to just the prelude of your book that rings off of that, that's entitled An Ocean Love Story. And so you're starting with a place that we typically don't expect climate scientists to take us. It's sort of a notion of love. So unpack some of that hopefulness of love that you're bringing to your work.
Sure. I mean, the first chapter of the book, this prelude, is about my origin story, essentially. It's the only chapter of the book that's really autobiographical or memoir, because I just felt like if someone's going to trust me as their guide through the next few hundred pages talking about climate solutions, putting things in perspective, the reader, the listener deserves to know the perspective that I'm bringing to this curation, right? This is a book of 20 interviews and essays and original commissioned art and some poetry. So really this opening chapter was my attempt to say, like, here's who I am. I'm going to be your guide. So let me introduce myself properly. I've no interest in writing an autobiography, but I was like, some context might be helpful. And the context that I found myself most wanting to offer was all of this really comes from this place of biophilia, of loving nature, of loving life on this planet, of being just gobsmacked by biodiversity and shooting stars and ants and rainforests and coral reefs and all of it. And so I wanted to make sure that people knew they were reading a book put together by a nature-loving dork. And that's the bias that I'm really bringing to this, is one of caring about people, yes, but also caring about very deeply about the rest of life on this planet and wanting to be a part of not only a human community, but of an ecosystem, and thinking about what if we get it right in that context and with that mindset.
Talk to us a little bit about that posture of the book with the title, What If We Get It Right?
Yeah. Well, I think the most important thing about the title is that there's a question mark at the end of it, right? It's a very open question. The book is not titled, We Will Get It Right, or When We Get It Right, or even This Is How We Get It Right. It's an invitation, really, the title, inviting us to imagine what that world would look like if we did charge ahead with all the climate solutions that we have at our fingertips, which are basically all we need, right? We already know how to electrify transportation, how to farm in a way that heals ecosystems and brings health back to ourselves. We already know how to green buildings. We know how to compost. We know how to put up solar panels and wind turbines. We know how to protect and restore ecosystems. We know how to replant trees and wetlands and mangroves. We know how to create protected areas and parks, right? There's not a lot of mystery here. We don't need to wait for technology to miraculously come up with something. We don't need to wait for fusion energy to exist. We can do all this right now. And so for me, this what if we get it right question is really like, how do we unlock a much faster transformation? How do we shift society, culture, politics, the status quo in order to just move a lot faster on this stuff? Because from where I'm sitting, we could get a much better world. Like, it's not that the world right now is perfect and it's something we need to hold on to for dear life, right? We're experiencing all these negative effects of climate change, but also just other things that are broken, right? Whether that's thinking about our democracy and making sure everyone has the right to vote and every vote is equally counted, which has big effects on whether or not we get climate policy, for example, because the majority of Americans would like our government to be doing more on climate, but the way our government is set up, that's not the outcome that we get, right? There's huge inequality in this country in terms of income and access to healthcare, et cetera. All of these things are big what ifs that are the context within which we're trying to deal with climate change and really impact that. And that's the status quo we're dealing with, is a lot of pollution and toxins, not great health system, not a terribly great school system, right? Not a great political system. And within that framework, we have to transform everything about the way we live on this planet. And so when I think about what if we get it right, it's not a technology question. It's a how can we be better humans question. How can we come together and each find our roles in making this transformation that we need to sort of like acknowledge the current status quo is really not working for very many people, and think about how we build a climate future that's like a world we want to live in, a place where we can actually thrive. And I feel like imagination is one of the things we most need right now. I would really like Hollywood to become more involved in telling stories about climate, not more documentaries, but more stories that just help us see what the world looks like if we implement all these climate solutions. Because I think part of the challenge is people don't want to race towards this future that's just this big blank unknown. And so while we have all of this media showing us what the bad version of the future looks like, right? We've got like a pretty clear vision of the apocalypse. We don't actually have a lot of visions of, like, what's the good thing? Like, what should I work towards? How can I be motivated, not just by running away from the bad stuff, but having something to run towards? I really think it's a time for artists, filmmakers, storytellers, musicians to help us to paint that in all of its multicolored glory and help us like get a more tangible sense of what we want to create together, so we can get excited about rolling up our sleeves and putting in the effort that's going to take. Because like there's a lot of work we need to do. And that can be really hard to be motivated. We're just like, oh, it's going to be apocalypse anyway. Like, why bother?
Yeah. You have two beautiful quotes, one from Arundhati Roy. What lies ahead? Reimagining the world. Only that. And then from Angela Davis, you have to act as if it were possible to radically transform the world, and you have to do it all the time. Beautiful, beautiful. Yeah.
I couldn't put it any better than them. So I just put those quotes right on their own separate pages in the book for people to appreciate.
If you'll allow me to geek out for a minute. So in Christian theology, this would be called a proleptic ethic. So proleptic being a grammatical form in which you speak of what is to come. You're so sure that it's to come that you speak of it in the present tense. And so this sort of notion of having this fertile imagination of what the world is going to be or can be, and then you act on that in the present. And then, of course, I think your thing about imagination as well is really helpful because in too much of my experience, I find too many religious folks who don't have a sufficient imagination for this earth. And they kind of have this kind of escapist vision so that as if this earth doesn't matter, which is deeply troubling to me, and I would imagine deeply troubling to you. But I don't know, any commentary on that, the proleptic piece, or imagine further things on the imagination or the ways our big stories fuel this?
I really appreciate sort of like the theological grammar of it, right? Just speaking it into being, the sort of investment in the story such that you are making it real. And I think there's definitely a need for that when we think about the future of life on Earth, right? And one of my favorite aspects of this merging of Christianity and climate action is this concept of creation care. And so I think there's a lot of really beautiful work happening in different communities, religious communities that are like, no, it's our job to care for, maintain, nurture, protect nature and all these species. And if they go extinct on our watch, that is a disrespect to the creator. But to go back to this concept of the speaking about the future in the present tense, I'm not there yet, but I'm definitely at the phase where I feel comfortable dreaming about it and then thinking about what can I do to help reel these dreams closer to reality. And so the question becomes for me, like, who do I need to team up with? Like, how can we collaborate? No one can do this alone. It all ends up being like join something. So what are the things that each of us are joining and contributing our skills, our expertise, our resources to make it successful, make this transformation more rapid, etc. So I think for people for whom their religious community is paramount, I think and wish that there could be more engagement within those spaces. But this idea of creation care, I just find so captivating because why wouldn't we care for creation?
So, says Ayana, now is a time for imagination, a time to act as if it were possible to transform the world, and then to work toward those ends. But none of us can do it alone. We have to join, commit, organize, and move towards the greater good together. But again, how do we do that in today's divided America? Educator and author Sharon McMahon has dedicated her career to teaching Americans about the way our government works and encouraging civic engagement inside and outside the voting booth. In the current era of political polarization, she's working towards a more bipartisan vision of the future, and she says that history proves it's possible.
The big recurring theme of my work is nobody can do everything, but everyone can do something. And we cannot allow our inability to solve all of the world's problems paralyze us into doing nothing. And I think that is often the place we find ourselves in this moment of being so chronically online, where we're so surrounded by a fire hose of information. The mental paralysis, the compassion fatigue is very, very real. And it is easy to get so overwhelmed and bogged down in that the enormity of the world's problems that we just are like, I can't even decide what to do next.
In thinking about people who have been proactive in that way and made a contribution to the world, where do you remember in your own kind of autobiographical narrative first being moved by someone who took what they had and exercised it for the common good?
Well, I think most of us can think about stories in our own personal lives where we have encountered a situation where we're like, I don't know why that person helped me, but they did. There was a time when I was a super poor college student and I was working 2 jobs. I grew up in a really cold northern climate where you have to salt the roads really aggressively to make them passable. And my car had so much rust that it had literally eaten holes in the floor of the car. And that's not an exaggeration. I had pieces of cardboard on the floor of my car. I worked hard to save up my money and I paid $500 for that car. Okay. So that's what we're talking about here. So I'm trying to go to college and I'm trying to work multiple jobs. And it was like impossible to keep a roof over my head and keep up with my very demanding schoolwork. So I definitely remember this moment where I was getting off of my job and I was just feeling very sort of like dejected and overwhelmed. And I got out to my car. And when I opened the door, what fluttered down onto the seat of my car was a $100 bill. I still to this day don't know where that came from. Obviously, somebody put it there and they got into my car somehow, which, by the way, the doors didn't lock and it had no radio, Lee. It had no radio and the doors didn't lock. I wasn't homeless. I wasn't destitute, but they obviously knew that I needed it. And I can think of a lot of examples of times in my own life and times in the lives of others where someone has just done for one person what they wish they could do for everybody. That feeling has stuck with me over the years. Somebody helped me just because they could.
Yeah.
I'm still carrying that forward.
Yeah, that's a beautiful line. Someone did for one person what they wish they could do for everybody. That's beautiful. Thinking about working alongside, even to learn, maybe to love or at least honor presumed enemies, where's that kind of bubble up in your life story?
The more I learn about history, the more I saw that history really was full of people who learned to work together for the good of their communities, despite an extremely fractious and contentious history together, personal history together, or broader communal history together, where somebody was actively working to harm a community that somebody was part of. The more I learn, the more I see evidence that that is how real progress is made. Real progress does not generally come from beating back your enemies. The World War IIs of the world are very unique in history, where there is a clear ideological enemy, right? A very clear, like, the Nazis are no good. And that's the reason we have over 9,000 books written about World War II. This is a topic that endlessly fascinates people, the battle of good versus evil playing out in the real world. That's not most conflicts. And that is not how most people have made progress in the world. That's not how women got the right to vote. That's not how the Black community gained civil rights. That's not how we now have the 14th Amendment. It's not from completely blowing your competition off the face of the planet. It's not from playing a zero-sum game.
So we need imagination, a hopeful vision of the future, and a will to collaborate for the greater good of our communities, for the greater good of the globe, the world, the planet. Practice number 3 for hope and transformation: join something. Join something local this week, a climate organization or a creation care group at church, a youth organization, elder care, a pedestrian safety group. Whatever passion you have for beauty, truth, or goodness, you will almost certainly find people in your community already working towards a better future in all sorts of creative and beautiful ways. And when all else fails, look for one person and try to do for them what you wish you could do for the world. You've been listening to No Small Endeavor and our holiday special Hope for Change with Tara Brach, Tom Paxton, Ayana Elizabeth Johnson, and Sharon McMahon. We gratefully acknowledge the support of Lilly Endowment Incorporated, a private philanthropic foundation supporting the causes of community development, education, and religion. Thanks to all the stellar team that makes this show possible. Christy Bragg, Jacob Lewis, Carrie Harmon, Jason Cheesley, Sophie Byard, Kate Hayes, Mary Evelyn Brown, and Audrey Griffith. Our theme song was composed by Tim Lauer. Thanks for listening, and let's keep exploring what it means to live a good life together. No Small Endeavor is a production of Tokens Media, LLC, and
Great Feeling Studios.
Hey, Ryan Reynolds here, wishing you a very happy half-off holiday, because right now Mint Mobile is offering you the gift of 50% off unlimited. To be clear, that's half price, not half the service. And Mint is still premium unlimited wireless for a great price. So that means a half day, yeah? Give it a try at mintmobile.com/switch.
Upfront payment of $45 for 3-month plan, equivalent to $15 per month required. New customer offer for first 3 months only. Speed slow after 35 gigabytes if network's busy. Taxes and fees extra. See mintmobile.com.